Hello, dear Bravo and TMZ. Please don't pretend it's personal. And please don't make allegations about me. I asked to report the FBI and the CIA, even if that was made up by one of them. But the FBI definitely recorded in their defending capacities too, with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, leading up to and in 2006 case, and since leading up to and in the World Trade Center attack locations, interstates with ones that were intercities first. Whole bunch of other nations here and there. Whole bunch of people on Trinity College, on CCSU, that involved with identity thefts and frauds. Like intercities connected, tied. So you can't call the police. One can't call the police because they fabricate audio and video transcripts. That's what's actually recorded. They recorded themselves. One can't record them. They recorded themselves. And delusions wrought since founding. For example, this being relevant and having been relevant to where and how there are so many evidences simultaneously using without even needing paper that and how manifest in manifesting example in demonstration of that breaching method that was entrenched here and that our founders left us to demonstrate cannot be entertained, left entrenched in the surface values of the Constitution syntactically defended. So other is syntactically defended. So other sense and sensibilities, use Jane Austen's phrase, are defended. And so other, as criminal and citizens' natures of positive and negative treatments in collusion against each nature of difference, each name, each location's name, each voicing of it, each group, difference. Species difference. These are three different bodies of volume to discern. Just like the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall. Three different bodies. Where else are they together simultaneously? There are three distinct identities of sequence nature. There are three distinct identities of simultaneous nature. And there is more coming through that. And that is as a slash. There are sequence / simultaneous nature. What else is? So are all things. Vaccines, even if you make them up, they have a semi-nature relationship to the hyper-nature. So this is hyperpantheism. And this is science. And this is hyperscience. Science / hyperscience. The same way, there is space / existence. So, note how space, as with matter, as matter, is simultaneously bigger than while simultaneously being smaller than space without matter. And space without matter is simultaneously bigger than and smaller than space with matter, because the simultaneous is a demonstration to us. To see the invisible but the still discernible criminal and citizens nature. For example, one needs to just use these evidences. New York City was designed only capable of causing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Excuse me, blaming how and why. They wanted to make it even worse, and fighting with that was effectively used to screen and blame on real, but ulterior, not real. Truth is used as lies. Blame on other things other than themselves, the real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. They never stopped. And they never stopped being blamed on other things other than themselves, and then that needed to be hid from that same nature, the hyper nature. So when someone says that things are unnatural, like slavery, see there's a tractatus of logic that these systems are tactily ulterior from. People say they want to make opinions about that, but they can't follow mandated law simultaneously. So further, with the principal child abusers campus, I caught more then and now. These are people with Sandy Hook, Newtown. So now I asked the guy's lawyer. I don't know how to contact him. The lawyer of the guy who was all big. Oh, this is a conspiracy theory, making a thing about it on in the news media, but with the news media treatments of him too. Fake sides, arrays of fake sides, where there are more intercities and interstates and worse than internations rolls with our agencies, complete remote possessions of them. They're hiding behind their rolls with a whole bunch of our countries here. And this kid brought up, or his father, little kid too. In other words, they're both men. They bring their kids, they're hiding behind their kids because they painted themselves as little fraudulent fakes in the past and on and off campuses. And see, this is where they're victims. Like, you have to talk about people of victim predator because we have to not separate the court's involvement with the overt criminal enterprises, with their sources too, at locations. They've been using locations remotely as victim predators since founding. Every modern country is doing it. That doesn't make it right. That's evidence that the nature of the law was never followed. Honestly, in other words, pretended, and that increasingly self-values means handed to get away with it, that are increasingly tied to this method. So there's a Ray Reynolds, and I don't even know his family members. I barely had a conversation with him from when I was in kindergarten. And their house is next to the schools in Weathersfield. There's a Joe DeMora house near that kindergarten, and there's a Christopher Finelli, who are involved with various natures of federal crimes with the kids at different extents, knowingly, but mostly unknowingly, but also knowingly, where they need to hide lipoaggressions per the various natures of, because there's also uses of various natures of child abuse, identity thefts, and frauds, people involved with slanders that are on and off campuses connected. And this is also because they have the sense and sensibilities of arrays of families and people that know each other, and as a standing, as what they pretend to be America. They're all America's only representatives, still in collusion with those narratives, self-valued, that can't entertain themselves and afford discerned what our founders needed to be discerned. For example, where and how our founders were all against slavery, and the ones that weren't, it was our founders, well, this person owned slaves. Those slaves were the possession, like our founders' free speech, like their identity, of a breaching method. Everyone was the complete possession of it to all locations, database relationships, even the countries themselves. America was still colonies. Even the colonies themselves were the possession of possessions that didn't have to be economically oriented. They have complete possession over their identity. They have complete possession over their fact treatments, with positive and negative. They have to lie. They have to value the systems that were built. If you entertain them, they're tactical ulterior from the one that causes positive or negative value nature progressions in demonstration of the hyper-perfection/perfections conjunction, where and how more and more forever nature is being made here at Earth's distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space/existence with consciousness. Only the extent of it is debatable. For example, 3 years, 1,000. See, 3 years are bound, grouped, just like the C, B, and the C are grouped, and the E and the F are grouped with the notes of music, in the sense that there is never a semitone between them, even if you go on to a different instrument when they're tuned. And so this is hyper volume science /volume science. And this is also theories theory. Theory is where and how they put all these theories. They entertain where and how time was used simultaneously, too fast, too slow, to get over on the hyper-simultaneous nature / physical simultaneous nature. Excuse me. In the opposite order, too. Simultaneously, and with a third quality of diffusion. Now, science reveals this. See, but people shouldn't have to write books while interbranch. The interbranch is preventing me and others from calling the police because they fabricate audio and video transcripts where and how they exploit and have exploited means to hide things, like because of their relationship with a whole bunch of countries here and there. Hundreds of countries shared here and there. And they speak for the law. And they speak for the nature law. And they defend that. This preaching method knew that would happen. They would have this propagated victim predators defending their, like when the subject treatments are brought up, like witch trials, know how slavery is kept apart. That goes together. That's how that's how you think. Use correlation / hypercorrelation. You hear someone say, okay, you know how this is unnatural. Instead of someone jumping in and saying, oh, if it's not slavery is unnatural, why would it be? It's hyper unnatural. You'll see how this is true. But so, okay, well, it's hyper unnatural, so it's criminally foreign influence. That's true. I agree about that. How come no one ever agreed about that yet? That's what the books are going to say. In many boxings. Doesn't matter I care, everyone needs God. People pretend passion, emotion. I care, mental health. These people are delusions wrought, making opinions about strangers. Then they say, oh, well, look, we agree. This is good behavior, that's bad behavior. They're getting involved with people's business. They have people calling the police with fake things. Boxings, because they need to hide lipoaggression because they're involved with an identity theft fraud method that is worse than how that is written by the law and is more finite than, as the value of that. Excuse me. So we need a quality of fact-cheating nature that's not going to would entertain the writing of the law interpreted the way it has been, leaving out exceptions, the exception nature, especially, thank God, hyper-exception nature. In other words, we could be another system. We can make exceptions to that and how it's going to be the only perfect one. But it will force exceptions in exception nature and demonstration of the same thing. Leads of hadiths. Otherwise, exceptions in exception nature complete what is not there standing defined that our syntax nature needs to use.